ready?
Before 1967, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, if you heard these words,
"My husband is having a heart attack,"
they would send you a police car or a funeral hearse. Unless you had your own car, these were the only options. Although ambulances did exist, mainly through the hospitals or your local fire departments, their skill sets were very limited because back then it was all about the transport. One evening in 1966, something had to happen to a prominent official that would forever change the course of what they called street medicine. A well-known gentleman was speaking at the podium at a politician's rally when he suddenly collapsed. People ran to his side for support and CPR. Then the ambulance came with a gurney and a bottle of oxygen. They placed him into the back of the ambulance, but for some reason, both crew members were headed for the front. That's when a nurse jumped into the back, trying to continue the CPR.
2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
But the one oxygen tank that they had was broke or either empty. When they arrived at the hospital, the doctors were waiting. And one of the doctors was Peter Saffer. He pretty much invented the way we use CPR today. They worked the patient, then they pronounced the patient. And then they realized this man could have been saved.
Time of death, 8:05.
The city said, this should not happen. Let's change the way we use street medicine. It's a new day in Pittsburgh, and changes are on the way. Public officials have realized that the Pittsburgh Police Ambulance Services was really bad.
All in favor?
So these men decided to take a stand, and they wanted to fix what was broken about the ambulance industry. Welcome to the Hill District, a predominantly black neighborhood in the 1960s. Let's just say towns were troubling with racism and bigotry in this era and area of Pittsburgh. Then there's Freedom House, a nonprofit organization based on helping black folks gain employment and starting businesses. Now this organization was instrumental in the community. They had fruit and vegetable trucks, and they delivered other foods. The organization was ran by its founder, a man named Jim McCoy. Well, Jim McCoy was reached out to by a businessman named Phil Hallen. He was mentioned earlier for his lack of faith in the Pittsburgh Police Ambulance Services. The two men would eventually meet up, and Phil Hallen told Jim McCoy, if you're able to transport fruit, you're able to transport people, and I have a plan for you and your people. The plan was to start an ambulance company, but Jim McCoy nor Phil Hallen knew how to start one. So Phil Hallen reached back out to Peter Saffer, who already had the plan in his head. But the only problem was Peter Saffer needed the people. That's when Jim McCoy comes into play. He tells the other men, I have plenty of people. They just don't have any training.
It doesn't matter.
That's when Peter Saffer replies, I need ordinary people. To prove that ordinary people can practice medicine outside the emergency room if given a chance. But this training program was no easy sell. You see, you had to convince people to stop whatever they were doing or whatever plans they had to train for a medical position that technically doesn't even exist. Not to mention, what are they even going to pay them, and where are they going to get the money from to pay them? Now the search goes on for months, and volunteers are hard to find due to displacement. But the impatient Peter Saffer calls Freedom House and asks, how many people do y'all have? We're starting tomorrow. So after the mental evaluations, and they find out ordinary people do have background problems, they finalize the 24 people they need and begin their externships. They go to the ER, they go to the OR, OB, surgical units, cardiac units. He wants them to see the results of everything so they know how to treat it when they see it. He wants them to treat gunshots, strokes, seizures, read cardiac monitors, and deliver babies. Peter Safran tells them, now you won't be nurses, you won't be doctors, but you will be able to do things only ER doctors can do, but in the back of a moving vehicle. You see, this level of care was unheard of from ambulance attendants, simply because the word paramedic had not been invented yet, even though there was some places here and there that started earlier. But those companies were restricted to just being cardiac techs, and some had nurses and doctors ride along for more serious matters. But Peter Safran taught the people of Freedom House how to be out there on their own and render what he called advanced first aid. Now, training did not go on without some resistance from the hospital staff.
House security.
The nurses would block them out of their units,
Can't come in here.
and they had to learn how to deliver babies from watching a videotape. Peter Safran would constantly have to come and explain who they were all over the hospital. The training has materialized, and Freedom House was up and running. A 10-month course ends in the summer of '68. Unfortunately, this falls on the heels of Martin Luther King's assassination. But the city of Pittsburgh allowed Freedom House ambulance to operate, but only if they stay restricted to the Hill District. Here's the translation. Serve blacks only and stay away from whites. Adversely, because of racial prejudices, Pittsburgh's white citizens would be deprived of cutting-edge medical technology. But most whites went along with it. In fact, if Freedom House showed up to a call and the patient was white, they got turned away. They would rather wait for the police to show up than get into an ambulance that's already there because the attendees were black. The mayor never liked the Freedom House plans. He thought the police were sufficient enough. He also didn't want Freedom House ambulance sounding their sirens outside the Hill District, so he gave the police permission to stop them.
Turn it off right now.
And this went on for a while. The mayor continued with the impediments and rumors about Freedom House ambulance, despite other cities adopting their blueprint. He told the police that Freedom House was running numbers and drugs out the back of those ambulances, and the police were pulling those ambulances over. And it worked for a while, because it slowed down what was already a disproportionate emergency system that responded to whites and neglected blacks. In the 60s, black people with emergencies would have to hitch a ride to the hospital the best way they knew how, because taxis and ambulances wasn't coming to their neighborhoods. Freedom House Ambulance was trying to bridge that gap with a new style of first responders that were taught how to intubate, read cardiac monitors, and start IVs at the scene. The police had no real training, and they were only known for swooping scoops. That is why Freedom House was using police scanners to intercept more critical calls. But one day, a child in an all-white neighborhood got critically injured, and the police requested Freedom House services because they didn't know how to handle such a bad call. Now, even though it was outside Freedom House jurisdiction, they responded to the call, and the child was stabilized and saved. The call with the child, along with many others, led to Pittsburgh's white residents to being displeased with the mayor, especially once they discovered that other major cities had already adopted the Freedom House blueprint. Now, the pressure was mounting against the mayor to come up with a citywide plan, but due to racism, the white residents were sticking to their guns and did not want black people touching them no matter what the situation was. But back then, black people were getting efficient and sufficient pre-hospital care as time went on. Fast forward to 1973. President Gerald Ford wanted to implement a standardized training program for EMS across the United States. He handpicked Peter Safran to advise the program. And Safran is already at the helm of Freedom House Ambulance, which would make Freedom House the ambulance everyone is looking at. But Peter Saffer is way too busy to run it, so he needs to find a director to run this program. He searches and searches, but no one will take the job. He finally found someone straight out of medical school, and her name is Dr. Nancy Caroline.
I'm Nancy.
Dr. Caroline took the position on one condition. Everything was done her way. She gave Freedom House free range and more confidence because she was literally around them full time. She's the reason every EMS system today has medical command. Finally, in 1975, the stubborn mayor of Pittsburgh decided to run its own citywide EMS system and push out Freedom House. So he did not renew the Freedom House contract. But the twist was, the mayor wanted Dr. Nancy Caroline to oversee the brand new citywide EMS system. She would eventually agree, but under one condition: that the Pittsburgh new EMS system hire all Freedom House employees since they were being phased out.